There is a running back coach who will have to, of course, answer to Mario Cristobal, and he comes in from UCF. Now, we did anticipate that move, and you addressed it last week, Cam, but it is now official.
Yeah, official. I'm looking at the press release from Miami Athletics. Matt Merritt is the new running backs coach. Has been in college coaching for more than a decade, and everything. Most recently, he was at USF. And they, had a solid running game. It was like top 30 in the country. Had a 6-win improvement and blew out Syracuse in the Boca Raton Bowl and everything. So, that's great. He worked at Tennessee before that, JMU and Ohio State before that. Georgia Southern, he was running backs coach there, which is, a team that has had some decent success. It was Georgia Southern that beat Florida, yeah? I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, not State, Southern. Okay, yeah. So, I'm just going through the press release. I don't know if he was there one of those years, but even if it wasn't one of those years, that was a team that had a very solid, rotation of running backs and things like that. So, thought obviously to be a plus person in terms of development from his track record and also recruiting, because you got to be able to do both here at Miami. And rose to the cream of the crop. Mario has a very exhaustive interview process for everything. So, balancing experienced coaches with, up and comers. And I think that Merritt has a good combination of both, where he does have some experience, but also has room to really develop into being a really dynamic coach at the position. So that is official as of today. We, welcome him to the U and everything. Great to have him on staff before spring ball and everything. And this is a guy who actually rushed for 542 yards in college. So, he's done it. Again, I'm not saying that he was, Barry Sanders, 1988 kind of in college or anything, but he's a guy who's done it. He did it on the field to a level, and then, has excelled and risen up the coaching ranks. So, excited to have him. Obviously sad to see Tim Harris Jr. go. I think that he was doing a great job in development and in recruiting and deployment. It's really tough with as many All-American high school running backs as Miami had in the room last year. It's really hard to balance all those guys and get everybody the touches that they think they deserve, and also take advantage of the various skill sets there. I thought he did a really good job with that. So, we wish him well as he goes back to UCF to be their offensive coordinator, and welcome Matt Merritt to the University of Miami family. So here we go.
So Matt Merritt was at Georgia Southern just 2 seasons ago in 2022, correct? That's what I'm seeing. So that Georgia Southern win over Florida, that was back in 2013. But Florida also had a more recent loss to a group of 5. It might have been right at the end of, I don't think it was Dan Mullen's tenure. I think it was, anyway, regardless.
Yeah, Elon in 2017 and 18, JMU in 2019. JMU was 10th nationally in rushing when he was there. I mean, if you go further and further into the past, you continue to see, well, I mean, obviously not super duper far, but, every year that you go back, it's like, oh, like he's been doing this, and, the places he's been have had good running games. So that just adds to, his resume and everything. Really excited to have him here, see what he can do, and, just help drive this team forward. So welcome to the U, Matt Merritt.
Before we get to some other discussions, NFL Combine and some other news and notes, a prospect also for the 2025 class. This is what goes on at this channel each and every week. This is pretty much the formula. Cam and I get together on Wednesday night. Cam, of course, delivers the analysis. I do my best to keep up with and provide whatever national perspective that I provide, but Cam is the bulk of the analysis. We have an editor who then edits clips from that show each and every week. The editor does a fine job, has general direction from me. I timestamp the show. The editor does take some liberties in regards to titling the segment. For example, I will give the basic, recruiting update. And then over the course of editing that segment, he may include a couple names if he hears them or so forth. Okay. There was a particular segment that was clipped from our conversation last week dealing with Mario Cristobal's performance in his first 2 years. And I'm the one who generated and initiated the conversation to say, Cam, had you known at the beginning that this is where we would be after 2 seasons? And there were a number of ways in which I framed the question, and that Cam certainly pointed out to the good points of Mario Cristobal's tenure thus far, and then some downside that seems to be rather obvious after 5-7 and 7-6, based on expectations and talent acquisition, which has been the plus side, most of it. And then, so we posted a video that was a clip from the conversation that Cam and I had that stated, okay, so the title given to it, which is my responsibility, everyone, the way these are titled, and I think often people don't watch the video, listen to the video, they get triggered by the title. And the title was again, it's my responsibility what the title is, regardless of whether I title it personally, which I don't, but it's my responsibility. It says Miami, too much for Mario Cristobal, ? And a lot of people took exception to, I'm doubting, not completely, but I'm doubting that largely they're taking exception to the title and not necessarily, Cam, what you said about your evaluation of Mario Cristobal thus far, and mine as well, because I certainly had my input. But yes, a lot of people were none too happy about what we had to say there. Or again, maybe we're just triggered by the title.
Right. I mean, and I know that I get that way sometimes. I do try to dive into the articles or the things that I see along those lines just to kind of see, maybe there's a disconnect between the headline, which the editor drops versus the content of the article or video or whatever. But hey, it happens. But hey, I mean, I'm glad that I hope that you guys watched it and everything. And if you disagree, then okay, we can disagree without being disagreeable and everything. But regardless of if you had a knee-jerk reaction or not, really need to win a lot of games this year. And I think we're in the position to do it, but we got to do it.
I always think it's a bit amusing when I get the comment, and other people do as well, of course, they create content. Oh, you just put that headline, or you just are trying to get views. Well, yeah, that is kind of the process. We are kind of in the business of trying to get views. But I think we have much proven ourselves, Cam in his position, me in my position more as a host, but also from the editorial standpoint of running the channel, that I think we've proven we are not into clickbait. Yes, but you still have to play the game of YouTube and be as attractive as possible, as alluring as possible. But in no way do we deceive anyone in the way we present the information, the takes in that way at all. So that's the approach, to be as attractive as possible to the viewer, but at the same time to be honest, to be forthright, and to be factual. Paulo, appreciate you being here. Has there been any word on a new safeties coach? If not, who in your opinion would be ideal as a hire?
Remember, it is not just a safeties coach. Jamil Adai was coaching all of the defensive backs. And that's how you had 2 coaches on the defensive line with Jason Taylor and Joe Salavea. So 2 there, 1 at linebacker, 1 at safety. I'm sorry, defensive backs. And then the others were all on offense of the assistants. Because you have. Sorry. So no, there's not been much word right now. Got into a couple arguments because my boy X, shout out to X in 305, asked the question, who do you want to be the DB's coach? And I responded with who I want, who I personally want. And off the top of my head, I put in capital letters D period V period D period to Marcus Van Dyke. That's who I would want. I had so many people screaming at me. I had people coming in my DMs. I had multiple football staff members DM me. I said, I literally, a friend asked a question. I put a thing up. I didn't say I've talked to, I have sourced, and da-da-da. Who do you want? Knee-jerk reaction. Boom. Suffice it to say, that ain't gonna happen. Trust and believe. But I was really shocked by the strong pushback that I got, especially from inside the Heck. Like, I was just like, I'm a guy who tweets things, like whatever. And like, I know a couple people like who work in Miami and whatever, but I was just like, there were a couple new names in my DM inbox. I was like, whoa, I don't know that I've ever spoken to you, but the fact that you like responded and came absolutely fun. My bad. So I say that to say that my initial knee-jerk reaction person, that is not an option for a variety of reasons that I will leave alone. That I have heard speculated, and I'm sure that you can speculate in the comments if you like. For me, I need somebody with the flexibility to be able to coach both. And clearly, Jamil Adai, having, coached up Tyreek Stevenson right at corner, and the two guys, Cam Kinch's All-American, James Williams, Daryl Porter took a big step forward last year. He did a really great job with both groups. I think and you also want someone who's going to coach both, because you do not want to have to move or remove one of the other assistants to bring in two defensive backs coach. You know what I mean? Because you get 10 assistant coaches, and you have that 10 with 2 on the defensive line and 1 in the secondary. You do not want to then have to go 2 in the secondary, because then somebody else is going to go, right? And I don't think that you want that with what we're seeing in recruiting and development at these other positions, right? I think that a lot of the coaches are doing a great job across the board, and you've already had to change running backs already. I don't know that you really want to go anywhere else. I mean, yeah, because your OC coaches quarterbacks. You just got a new running backs coach. Kevin Beer coaches wide receivers. The new kid, Merritt, not Merritt, Woodeel coaches tight ends. Mirabal is Cristobal's right-hand man coaching offensive line. You got 2 defensive line coaches, a linebackers coach. Am I missing somebody? Special teams coordinator? Or no, the defensive coordinator didn't have a position because Kevin Steele didn't have a position. So maybe you have Lance Guidry coach safeties because that's what he played, and you bring in a cornerbacks coach. Or you go the opposite direction and get the best coach available and have Guidry coach the other position. That's a way that you could go by giving the defensive coordinator his actual position room to coach. So that's a thing. But again, as per usual, I'm ideating this on the fly. So I don't know. I just think you got to go get the best guy possible. And again, has been proven, Miami can and will go get somebody up off their good job. So I don't have a name for you right now. But there are a lot, as I've come to the end of this answer, started to kind of open the door and say there are a lot of different ways that this can go. But, I think it might be a little bit because Cristobal does have a very intensive interview process. And I think that even going back to Lance Guidry and saying, hey, are you down to have your own position room? Are you down to be the whichever position coach as well as the DC? And there's multiple ways that this can go. I think that we're going to find this out, obviously, hopefully before spring ball, but we'll see which way it goes.
Special teams are important. Special teams are not as important as they once were. There just aren't as many special teams plays in a college football game as there used to be. So case in point, folks, if you look at the number of kickoff returns, let's say, or punt returns, either one of the number one team in the nation, I'm not talking about in terms of their effectiveness. I'm talking about which team brought back the most kickoffs or punts this year, and take that back 10 years, take that same number and that team would be middle of the pack. There's more rugby style punting that's more effective. Coaches don't try to block punts as much because the risk reward just isn't there. For as much as I love a blocked punt, I think that's one of the most fun plays to watch in college football, in football, period. The risk reward's just not there. Obviously, the kickoff rules have decentivized the choice to bring the ball out of the end zone or even advance it if you catch it at the 3-yard line. Get it at the 25. There's just a number of things. In the punting, in addition to the rugby style, just the punting overall is so much more effective. And then also the risk reward. A lot of coaches are teaching players or coaching players to just secure the football, take the fair catch. Let's take the football and let's go with it. That what we're seeing are less dedicated special teams coaches across college football. They're still there. Do you have a preference as to we can reallocate this position somewhere else and it's more effective, or special teams are still so important to the point where we need a guy dedicated to that spot?
I mean, we didn't have a dedicated special teams coach last year. So I think that, or by title at least, I know that we do have a couple very good analysts on staff who work with kickers and things like that, and like off the field assistants or whatever. So I honestly would say leave it the way that it was. Maybe put it under the responsibilities of your associate head coach or assistant head coach or something, that is and you see in the NFL, a lot of times special teams coaches are guys who get elevated to head coach because they do have to work with everybody across the roster. That's, how Dan Campbell started, or that was one of his roles, and, other coaches as well. Dan Campbell for your Detroit Lions, who should have been in the Super Bowl, but whatever. Stupid Josh Reynolds struck a goddamn 4th down. Oh, I'm still mad. Anyway, sorry. But no, I don't want to see like a specific guy as the special teams coach because no, we can use the other coaches we can allocate that responsibility between maybe a couple of coaches and have 10 guys who are coaching the positions that play the 95% of snaps as opposed to the 5%.
I was just double checking. I do not follow the NFL like I used to. I just kind of watch the games, but I'm not like in on the rosters and so forth. But I was about 99.9% sure that Josh Reynolds played at Texas A&M, and I was just double checking. Yes, that Josh Reynolds. Okay.
Indeed.